As we enter 2025, the global economic landscape is marked by significant challenges, particularly for certain nations facing severe financial crises. Among these, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Haiti, and Niger stand out as countries grappling with dire economic conditions that threaten their stability and development. This video delves into the underlying causes of their financial difficulties, examining the socio-political context, economic indicators, and potential future scenarios for these nations. So, here's the list of 10 countries going broke in 2025. Before we start, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment your thought. Here we go. Number 10. Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. Economic overview. The DRC, despite its vast natural resources, remains one of the poorest countries globally. As of 2023, approximately 74.6% of its population lived on less than $2.15 a day. The economy has shown signs of resilience, with a projected real GDP growth of 4.8% in 2025, down from 7.8% in 2023. However, this growth is overshadowed by significant challenges, including political instability and ongoing conflict. Political context. The DRC's political landscape has been tumultuous, culminating in the recent re-election of President Felix Tshisekedi in December 2023 amidst deteriorating human rights conditions. The country has faced decades of conflict, particularly in the eastern regions where armed groups vie for control over lucrative mineral resources. This instability has led to the displacement of over 7 million people, exacerbating humanitarian crises. Humanitarian crisis. The DRC is currently experiencing a severe humanitarian crisis characterized by food insecurity affecting approximately 25.6 million people, about a quarter of its population. The combination of armed conflict, disease outbreaks, including measles and Ebola, and climate change-related disasters has left many without access to basic services and adequate nutrition. Future outlook. Looking ahead to 2025, the DRC faces substantial risks that could derail its economic recovery efforts. Continued violence and political volatility threaten to undermine governance, reforms necessary for attracting investment and fostering sustainable growth. The International Monetary Fund has approved a new $1.729 billion extended credit facility to support economic stability. However, effective implementation remains critical. Number 9. Haiti. Economic overview. Haiti's economic situation is dire, characterized by rampant inflation and widespread poverty. Nearly half of the population faces acute hunger due to a combination of factors, including poor agricultural yields and ongoing gang violence that disrupts daily life. The country ranks among the most fragile states globally, with weak institutions struggling to provide essential services. Political context. Haiti's political instability can be traced back decades but has escalated dramatically in recent years due to escalating gang violence and infighting among political leaders. The capital, Port-au-Prince, has become increasingly dangerous as gangs exert control over significant areas, leading to mass displacement. Over 700,000 people have fled their homes due to violence. Humanitarian crisis. The humanitarian situation in Haiti is critical. Approximately 5 million people are facing acute hunger exacerbated by inflation and extreme weather events like hurricanes. The lack of coordinated urban planning has heightened vulnerability to natural disasters, further complicating recovery efforts. Future outlook. In 2025, Haiti's prospects remain bleak unless significant international support is mobilized to address both immediate humanitarian needs and long-term structural issues. A delayed foreign security mission has made little progress in restoring order, leaving many Haitians in precarious living conditions. Number 8. Myanmar. Myanmar's economy is at a critical juncture following the military coup in February 2021 that ousted the democratically elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. The coup has led to widespread civil unrest and international condemnation, resulting in severe economic repercussions. By 2025, Myanmar is projected to face significant economic challenges characterized by declining GDP growth and escalating poverty levels. Political context. The political environment in Myanmar remains highly unstable as the military junta continues to suppress dissent through violent crackdowns on protests and opposition movements. Human rights abuses have escalated since the coup, with reports of extrajudicial killings and arbitrary detentions becoming commonplace. The military's grip on power has led to increased isolation from international communities and a loss of foreign investment. Economic challenges. Declining GDP. Myanmar's GDP contracted sharply following the coup due to disruptions in trade and investment. Estimates suggest that growth will remain stagnant or decline further as political instability persists. Humanitarian crisis. The ongoing conflict has resulted in a humanitarian crisis affecting millions. Displacement due to violence has left over 1 million people internally displaced, exacerbating food insecurity and limiting access to essential services like healthcare and education. International isolation. Myanmar faces increasing isolation from international markets as countries impose sanctions on military leaders and businesses linked to the junta. This isolation is likely to hinder economic recovery efforts and limit access to foreign aid. Future outlook. As we move into 2025, Myanmar's future remains uncertain amidst ongoing political turmoil and economic decline. Unless there is a significant shift towards restoring democratic governance and addressing human rights concerns, the country may continue down a path of economic collapse. International support will be crucial in addressing humanitarian needs while fostering an environment conducive to sustainable development. Number 7. Mozambique. Economic overview. Mozambique has long been touted for its rich natural resources, including vast reserves of natural gas and coal. However, the country's economic potential remains largely untapped due to a series of crises that have hindered growth. The World Bank projects a modest GDP growth rate of 4% for 2025, which is significantly lower than earlier expectations due to ongoing political instability and economic disruptions caused by post-election unrest. Political context. The political landscape in Mozambique has been tumultuous, particularly following the recent elections that have sparked widespread protests and violent unrest. The ruling party, Frelimo, faces mounting opposition from the Podemos party, led by Venancio Mondlane. The aftermath of the elections has seen significant civil unrest, leading to border closures and disruptions in trade routes critical to the economy. Humanitarian crisis. The humanitarian situation in Mozambique is dire, with millions facing food insecurity exacerbated by natural disasters and conflict. The National Institute for Disaster Management estimates that at least 2.2 million people are at risk from urban and rural floods and droughts. The persistent insurgency in Cabo Delgado has further complicated recovery efforts, displacing over 800,000 people and creating a humanitarian emergency that requires urgent international assistance. Economic challenges. Despite its resource wealth, Mozambique's economy is hampered by structural issues such as inadequate infrastructure, a lack of skilled labor, and excessive regulation. The infamous tuna bond scandal, which revealed hidden debts amounting to $2 billion, has severely damaged investor confidence and led to cuts in international aid. As of early 2025, the country is grappling with a fiscal deficit projected to widen to 3.4% of GDP before narrowing slightly later in the year. Future outlook. The outlook for Mozambique remains uncertain. While there are hopes for stabilization, following negotiations between the government and opposition parties, the potential for continued unrest poses significant risks to economic recovery. If violence persists or escalates, it could lead to further disruptions in trade and investment, exacerbating an already fragile economic situation. Number 6. Madagascar. Economic overview. Madagascar's economy is characterized by its reliance on agriculture, which employs approximately 70% of the population. However, the country faces numerous challenges, including poverty, political instability, and vulnerability to climate change impacts. The World Bank estimates that Madagascar's GDP growth will remain stagnant at around 3% in 2025 due to these compounding factors. Political context. The political environment in Madagascar has been marked by instability since the 2009 coup that ousted former President Marc Ravalomanana. Recent elections have failed to bring about lasting peace or effective governance, with allegations of electoral fraud leading to protests and civil unrest. The current government struggles with legitimacy issues and faces significant opposition from various factions within society. Humanitarian crisis. Madagascar is experiencing one of the world's worst food crises, with over 1.6 million people facing acute hunger as a result of prolonged droughts and economic mismanagement. The situation has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted supply chains and agricultural production. Malnutrition rates are alarmingly high among children under 5 years old. Economic challenges. Madagascar's economy suffers from underinvestment in infrastructure and services, limiting access to markets for farmers and small businesses. The lack of diversification makes the economy particularly vulnerable to external shocks, such as fluctuating commodity prices or natural disasters like cyclones. Additionally, corruption remains a significant barrier to foreign investment. Future outlook. The future for Madagascar appears bleak unless substantial reforms are implemented to address governance issues and improve agricultural resilience. Without international support focused on humanitarian aid and development initiatives, Madagascar risks falling deeper into economic despair as food insecurity continues to rise. Number 5. Malawi. Economic overview. Malawi's economy is predominantly agrarian, with agriculture contributing around 30% of GDP. However, it faces significant challenges, including high inflation rates projected at around 12% in 2025 due to rising food prices driven by climate-related shocks. Despite some recovery efforts post-COVID-19 pandemic, Malawi's growth remains sluggish. Political context. Malawi's political environment has been unstable since the controversial 2019 presidential elections, which led to widespread protests and calls for reform. President Lazarus Chakwera's administration has struggled with governance issues and allegations of corruption that undermine public trust. Humanitarian crisis. Malawi is currently facing a humanitarian crisis, with over 1 million people requiring urgent food assistance due to droughts affecting agricultural output. The combination of climate change impacts and economic mismanagement has resulted in increased vulnerability among rural populations who rely heavily on subsistence farming. Economic challenges. Malawi's economy is hampered by structural issues such as limited access to finance for smallholder farmers and inadequate infrastructure that restricts market access. Additionally, high levels of public debt limit government spending on essential services like health care and education. Future outlook. For Malawi to avoid further economic decline in 2025, it will need significant international support coupled with domestic reforms aimed at improving governance and resilience against climate shocks. Without these changes, Malawi risks deepening its cycle of poverty and instability. Number 4. Russia. Russia's economy is at a critical juncture as it navigates the consequences of prolonged sanctions and the ongoing war in Ukraine. In 2025, the country faces a likely scenario of stagflation, characterized by high inflation coupled with stagnant growth. The International Monetary Fund has warned that without significant course corrections, Russia could run out of liquid reserves by fall 2025, leading to a potential economic collapse. Political context. The political environment in Russia is heavily influenced by President Vladimir Putin's administration and its military endeavors. The Kremlin has prioritized defense spending, which is expected to account for up to 40% of the national budget in 2025. This focus on military expenditure comes at the expense of social programs and infrastructure development, exacerbating domestic discontent as household incomes decline for those not involved in the war economy. Economic challenges. Stagnating growth. Despite claims of resilience, key sectors of the Russian economy are cooling down. The growth rate has slowed significantly, and inflation remains stubbornly high. Many economists question the accuracy of official data, suggesting that real production activity has stagnated since late 2023. Sanctions impact. The sanctions imposed by Western countries have severely restricted Russia's access to international markets and technology. Although some countries like China and India have stepped in to mitigate these effects, the long-term impact on Russia's export revenues remains concerning. Social discontent. The growing divide between the military-industrial complex and civilian sectors is causing unrest among the populace. As living standards decline and inequality rises, there is increasing pressure on the government to address these issues while sustaining its military commitments. Future outlook. The outlook for Russia in 2025 is grim. Experts predict that if current trends continue, the country could face an economic recession marked by a shortage of liquid reserves and a declining quality of life for ordinary citizens. The Kremlin's ability to maintain stability will be tested as social contracts shift under mounting pressure from economic hardships. Number 3. Haiti. Economic overview. Haiti's economic situation is one of the most precarious globally, characterized by rampant inflation, widespread poverty, and political instability. As of early 2025, nearly 50% of the population faces acute hunger due to a combination of factors, including poor agricultural yields and ongoing gang violence that disrupts daily life. Political context. Haiti has been plagued by political turmoil for decades, with recent events leading to heightened instability. Following the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in July 2021, the country has struggled to establish effective governance. The current government faces significant challenges from armed gangs that control large areas of Port-au-Prince, leading to mass displacement. Over 700,000 people have fled their homes due to violence. Humanitarian crisis. The humanitarian crisis in Haiti is dire. Approximately 5 million people are facing acute hunger exacerbated by inflation and extreme weather events like hurricanes. The lack of coordinated urban planning has heightened vulnerability to natural disasters, further complicating recovery efforts. Economic challenges. Inflation and poverty. Haiti's inflation rate has soared in recent years, severely impacting purchasing power and pushing more people into poverty. Basic goods are becoming increasingly unaffordable for many families struggling to meet their daily needs. Dependency on foreign aid. The Haitian economy heavily relies on remittances from abroad and foreign aid for survival. However, political instability has made it difficult for aid organizations to operate effectively within the country. Gang violence. Ongoing gang violence disrupts economic activities and undermines any efforts at recovery. Businesses are often forced to close or operate under duress from criminal organizations that demand payments for protection. Future outlook. Looking ahead to 2025, Haiti's prospects remain bleak unless significant international support is mobilized to address both immediate humanitarian needs and long-term structural issues. A delayed foreign security mission has made little progress in restoring order. Without this intervention, many Haitians will continue living in precarious conditions marked by violence and deprivation. Number 2. Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone's economy has been in a precarious state for years, characterized by high levels of poverty and unemployment. The country is projected to face unprecedented economic strain in 2025, with the suffering of its citizens likely to quadruple due to various fiscal measures implemented by the government. The recent Finance Act 2024, which introduces increased import duties on essential commodities, such as rice, threatens to exacerbate food insecurity and deepen poverty levels across the nation. Political context. The political landscape in Sierra Leone is fraught with challenges. Following a disputed general election in June 2023, an attempted coup in November 2023 heightened tensions and underscored the instability within the government. The current administration under President Julius Maada Bio has faced criticism for its handling of economic policies, and public dissatisfaction is growing due to stagnant living conditions and rampant inflation. Economic challenges. Inflation and cost of living. Inflation remains a significant issue in Sierra Leone, with rates hovering around 25.5% as of August 2024. The introduction of new taxes on essential goods will further increase living costs for ordinary citizens, pushing many into deeper poverty. Dependence on imports. The country relies heavily on imports for basic necessities, including food and fuel. The increased import duties on staple items like rice will directly impact household budgets, making it increasingly difficult for families to afford essential goods. Electricity sector crisis. The electricity sector in Sierra Leone is plagued by inefficiencies and high operational costs, leading to frequent power outages that hinder economic activity. The government's heavy subsidies to the electricity distribution and supply authority divert funds from critical social services like health and education. Future outlook. Without significant reforms and international support, Sierra Leone's economy is poised for further decline in 2025. The combination of high inflation, political instability, and a lack of effective governance could lead to widespread unrest as citizens struggle to meet their basic needs. Policymakers must prioritize sustainable growth strategies that address both immediate humanitarian concerns and long-term economic stability. Number 1. Afghanistan. Afghanistan's economy has been devastated since the Taliban regained control in August 2021. The international community's withdrawal of support has plunged the nation into a humanitarian crisis marked by extreme poverty and food insecurity. By early 2025, it is estimated that over 28 million people, approximately 70% of the population, will require humanitarian assistance. Political context. The political situation in Afghanistan remains volatile under Taliban rule. The government has faced widespread condemnation for its human rights abuses, particularly against women and minorities. International recognition has been elusive, further isolating Afghanistan economically and politically. The lack of formal governance structures has led to rampant corruption and mismanagement of resources. Economic challenges. Severe humanitarian crisis. Afghanistan is experiencing one of the worst humanitarian crises globally. Food insecurity is rampant, with millions facing starvation due to disrupted agricultural production and lack of access to markets. Economic isolation. Following the Taliban takeover, many international organizations halted aid programs, leading to a collapse in public services and infrastructure development. This isolation has severely limited economic opportunities for Afghan citizens. Dependence on foreign aid. Afghanistan's economy has become heavily reliant on foreign aid for survival. With international donors hesitant to engage with the Taliban-led government, funding shortages are exacerbating the already dire situation. Future outlook. The outlook for Afghanistan remains bleak as we approach 2025. Unless there is significant change in governance or international engagement, the country will continue to face severe economic challenges that could lead to widespread suffering among its population. Efforts must be made to address humanitarian needs while fostering an environment conducive to sustainable development. The conclusion. So, guys, this was the 10 countries going broke in 2025. Hope you will like it and appreciate it. Both Oman and Sweden offer welcoming environments for UK citizens looking to explore new horizons. While Oman charms with its rich cultural hospitality and warm climate, Sweden impresses with its progressive society and high quality of life. Each country presents unique advantages tailored to different preferences and lifestyles. Whether seeking adventure in the Middle East or a tranquil life in Scandinavia, UK citizens can find a welcoming home away from home in these two remarkable nations. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and press the bell icons for latest upcoming travel videos. Bye-bye. See you.